My name is Katie Linder, and I'm the Research Director for eCampus at Oregon State University. And I'd like to welcome you to our panel on Caption Studies, Research Questions for the Field. I want to start by reading the bio statements of each of our panelists who are joining us today, and then I'll be launching into our questions. First, we have Janine Butler, who is a PhD candidate in the Rhetoric, Writing, and Professional Communication program at East Carolina University in Greenville, North Carolina. Her specializations are accessibility, multimodality, and embodiment. Her dissertation advocates for the integration of captions and subtitles into the space of the videos we create in different academic and professional contexts. In addition to caption studies, she researches and engages in visual digital rhetorics, deaf studies, and writing program administration. Welcome, Janine. Our second panelist is Nicole Snell, who hails from Los Angeles, California originally, and now lives in the greater Boston area. She is currently an assistant professor at Bentley University in the Department of Information Design and Corporate Communication. Her interdisciplinary research explores the intersections of language, technology, and culture through examination of both the rhetorical and phenomenological functions of existing and emerging new media and channels of mass communication to facilitate accessibility, such as captioning for marginalized groups. Our third panelist is Dr. Sean Zdenek, who you may recognize as our keynote speaker for this conference. He is an associate professor of technical communication and rhetoric at Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas. He holds a PhD from Carnegie Mellon University, a master's degree from California State University at Stanislaus, and a bachelor's degree from the University of California at Berkeley. At Texas Tech, he teaches undergraduate and graduate courses in web accessibility and disability studies, sound studies, report writing, style, documentation design, writing for publication, developing instructional materials, and others. Sean is the author of Reading Sounds, Closed Caption Media and Popular Culture from the University of Chicago Press. He has been keenly interested in closed captioning for over a decade and has been writing about it since 2009. So please join me in welcoming our panelists today. For our first question, I'm going to start with Sean. And Sean, I'd like you to just briefly describe the central research questions that have guided the projects that you have worked on with closed captioning.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Katie, and thank you all for coming, and I'm excited to be here. You know, all of my college degrees are in English departments, and I tend to approach problems from a humanities perspective. And more specifically, I tend to approach problems rhetorically. So there are key terms in rhetoric that I think always tend to rise to the surface for me, terms like purpose, audience, genre, and context. And I'm interested in how these terms shape the production and reception of texts. So I'm interested in questions of meaning. I'm interested in textuality, how we can treat captions or begin to treat captions as a text to be interpreted. Because I'm a hearing researcher, I'm also interested in the different affordances of sound in writing and listening and reading. I read captions and I listen to them at the same time, and that interplay is really interesting to me. And then before I get to the questions, on a personal level, as I said, I'm a hearing researcher, but I also have a deaf family member, my younger son. And so for me, captions sort of fuse in this wonderful way, fuse the professional and the personal. I watch captions at home, watch caption TV and movies at home for fun, and I'm also sort of doing research at the same time. That's what I joke anyway, that I lay in bed and watch TV and I'm doing my research. But it's a really nice fusion for me of the personal and the professional. So I'm interested in folding captions into the other kinds of rhetorical analyses that we perform, and my key questions grow out of these interests. So here are my questions, Katie and others. How do captions work to make meaning? How do audiences make meaning with captions? What kinds of texts and experiences do captions enable and foreclose? What are the different affordances of sound and writing, reading and listening, and how do they enable different experiences of the text? And then finally, a question that you often see web accessibility researchers talk about. What if we started with accessibility? In this case, what if we started with captions in our research studies and our analyses instead of relegating them to add-ons or afterthoughts? I'm interested in what it might mean to do a film analysis or TV show analysis, but really fold in an analysis of captions, integrate them into our analytical or rhetorical framework. And that's it.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Janine, I'd like to ask you the question next. If you could please share with us some of the central research questions that have guided your research projects on closed captions. Thank you, Janine. Next, we have Nicole. We've had some connectivity issues with Nicole, so I want to make sure that we can hear her. Nicole, are you there? Leslie, I'm wondering if Nicole needs to be unmuted. All right, Nicole, can you see if you can respond now?
Hello. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. I'm wondering if you can start. We've had our other panelists talk about their central research questions that have guided their projects on closed captions. Can you also tell us about yours?
Sure. I'm really investigated closed captioning from 3 different stances. First, it was my dissertation from 2012, and I looked at how the experience of the individual viewer of captioning constructed, processed, and evolved with the overall comprehension of caption media. And more specifically, given that the main audience of closed captioning has historically been the deaf, my dissertation explored that particular audience's experience with closed caption media. To investigate the research question, I developed a mixed message framework for documenting and measuring connotative emotional meaning as well as denotative or literal or primary information assimilation and effect in both hearing and also the deaf user while they viewed either audio-based or closed caption media. It should be mentioned that the research question and framework I developed both address the shortcoming of closed captioning reception studies thus far. And the reason it does is because typically the studies that were out there at that time in 2012 focused largely on the recording of strictly denotative meaning retention in the absence of accompanying emotive impressions. And so I came up with a framework, as I stated before, it's mixed methods. It included qualitative instruments from the user experience field. And I also used quantitative measures from the field of human-computer interaction. And through that, I was able to determine that while there was no major differences in denotative equivalence, so say the understanding of the text that was on the screen, there were definitely important differences in how the emotional information was assimilated and the viewing strategies that deaf versus hearing individuals used to support that understanding. And then my second inquiry had to do with the question, what is the effect of caption placement on information intake? And that was actually done with eye tracking. And it was done also a couple of years ago. And eye tracking movement data was used to quantitatively analyze the effect of 4 different caption methods. So you had captions that were displayed at the bottom of the screen. You had captions that were located at the top of the screen. You had captions that hovered near the person that was talking. And you also had captions that alternated between the top of the screen and the bottom of the screen. The results ultimately indicated that caption placement has or can have a significant effect on reading time, also with the amount of time that your eyes are moving to focus in on the area of interest, which most of the time is the caption itself. And also the ratio of fixations, which basically means when the viewer stops and just takes in the captions and no other information on the screen. As stated before, the placement has a significant effect, and the differences were found given how individuals were reading the captions and also suggesting ultimately that caption styles play an important role for the viewing strategies of the captioner. My most recent work has to do with the race variable associated to closed captioning. It is something that has not been explored to date. I actually just finished a chapter with a co-author, Nicole McFarland, and we focused on an episodic drama, Breaking Bad. And we looked at the ways in which, how would you say, in which race may show or may not in the interpretation that captioners utilize in doing their captions. So I'm just going to give you an example. For instance, we found that music that was rap, non-spoken information, actually was captioned as indecipherable rap music, when in fact it was a popular film, a popular song. And then you also had an individual, music in the same scene that was more traditional. I think it's the Ride of the Valkyries. I'm not sure of the exact name. However, it was interesting to note that they actually included the title. So questions really weigh on how the captioners are interpreting the information that they get and whether or not African American vernacular and other vernaculars that aren't, quote unquote, in alignment with Anglo-Saxon dialogue are being conveyed or dismissed. And so those are the three things that I've been working on.
Thank you, Nicole. I also want to mention that if audience members have questions for our panelists, you can put those questions into the Q&A box that's a part of your event controls. So I'm going to continue to ask questions, but if you have them as well, please feel free to enter them there. I also did want to mention that the captioning research that we're conducting here at Oregon State, some of our questions are, how does caption use impact learning outcomes in fully online classrooms? And we're also asking some research questions around student use and perceptions of closed captions in fully online classrooms. We're doing that research through experimental design and through survey research. For this next question, I'm going to start with Janine. And I'm wondering if you can share some of your experiences researching closed captions and in particular the challenges that you've encountered as you've researched closed captions. This is Katie. Thank you, Janine, for sharing about some of your challenges.
Can you switch interpreters?
So, Janine, you brought up a point about one of the challenges is people associating captioning with the deaf community only, and we have had that challenge here at Oregon State as well with some of the research we've been doing, asking institutions how they're providing closed captions to online learners. And what we have found is there is definitely a connection that institutions are making between closed caption use and only students who are requiring them for accommodation, and they are not associating closed caption use with other populations. So that's been an interesting challenge for us as well. Sean, I'd like to invite you to answer this question next about some of the challenges that you've encountered with your experience with closed captions.
Okay, sure, thank you. And maybe for part of this answer, I could share my screen. I don't want to get in the way of the access windows, but if that's possible, I could click share my desktop here in 1 minute. I've got three, thank you. I've got three challenges that I faced in my work. You know, with rhetorical analysis, a lot of that work happens from the bottom up, taking one curious artifact, one caption. People like to share one screenshot on Twitter, and the challenge is really to try to scale up from there to gain access to entire movie caption files. And for me, I think that's been my biggest challenge. It's access, gaining access to an entire movie caption file. So if you want to extract captions from a DVD, it's actually a pretty time-consuming process that involves about 3 different software programs. There are subtitle sharing sites online, but I haven't found them to be so trustworthy when it comes to finding official DVD closed caption files. So I took to extracting caption files from DVDs by hand, using a DVD decryptor, a subtitle ripper, and then a copy program like Handbrake to get a copy of the movie. Subtitles or captions are stored as bitmap images in DVD, so it's not like you can open up the DVD and just copy the text caption file. You actually have to physically extract it. So gaining access to movie caption files has been a big hurdle for me. I've solved the hurdle, but I'm just one person, and you know, I only had so much time to begin to build a corpus of official DVD movie caption files.
Sean, can I pause you for 1 second? I think your audio is not coming through, so I want to make sure. I can hear you, but I'm not sure that our caption provider can hear you.
Okay, I'm not sure what to do about that. I've got my volume up all the way.
Yeah, and since I can hear you, I'm not sure what the problem is.
Okay, I can try to speak up. I'm here in my office by myself. I can speak up. If that helps, I guess that's all that I know how to do without turning my computer off and on or something like that.
No, I understand. I think your audio is coming through just fine for some people. I think it's just for some reason our captioner cannot hear your audio.
Yeah, with Strata, I think it's on the captioner's end as well. I don't have a problem with anyone else's setup, so we're looking at this right now.
Okay, should we continue, Leslie?
Oh, I think that they are back up and running now. Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, Sean, for interrupting.
No, that's okay. I don't know that there are problems unless someone tells me. I just keep on speaking. So that's the first issue for me. It's access. The second one is copyright. I'd love to be able to share with other people, and there are subtitle sharing sites, and if we want to talk about those and why those aren't working for me or for maybe for others, we can. But obviously these files are copyrighted. They're owned by the producers, the movie producers or content creators. So just being able to share that corpus. I mean, you run into copyright issues, obviously, when you're extracting caption files. I think I'm okay in terms of fair use, but copyright, I think, prevents us from building a large corpus. And for me, I think that's ultimately the goal, a large corpus, like thousands of official DVD caption files so that we can follow up on hunches, so that we can find every single example of a dog barking, for example, in all different kinds of movies, that sort of thing. I'm particularly interested in following up on hunches. So indistinct chatter is a non-speech caption that is, I call it a boilerplate. You find it in just about every movie. It'd be great to be able to pinpoint the exact location of every single indistinct chatter in a very large corpus. So copyright, I think, is another hurdle for me. And then the third one is finding a way to search these files. I guess you could do search on your Mac or something like that. But I'm particularly interested in non-speech captions. Those are the captions in parentheses or brackets. And I wanted a way to separate speech captions from non-speech captions. And so here's where I want to share my desktop. My older son wrote a program for me, if you can see the screen here, that allowed me to just add, after I extracted DVD caption files, I was able to add them. This just runs off my browser on my computer. I can add files, and then what I can do is I can click on a file. Here's the captions for Avatar, but my older son put them in a table, and he separated the speech captions from the non-speech. So here are the non-speech captions in chronological order for Avatar, and you can see the caption number here is linked. So if I wanted to check out one non-speech caption in context, I could click on the link, caption 159, and then I could check out all of the captions that surround that non-speech caption. This became really valuable to me. He put these in tables as well, so I could copy them into Excel, and I'll show you that in just 1 second. I don't want to take too much time. So there's a non-speech.
I need to pause you again. I'm sorry. Our captioner can't hear you. And so I think what we need to do is actually switch to Nicole and then have you come back and answer your question when everyone can hear. And I know they're working on it behind the scenes, so I apologize for that.
It's fine. Not a problem.
Let's go ahead and switch over to Nicole. Nicole, are you there?
Yes. Hello?
I can hear you.
Hi. Yes. Sean brings up some very good points, and I would definitely agree with the issues that people trying to investigate captioning run into. I have a different type of issue that I want to bring up, which is, I mentioned that I did an eye tracking study, but the eye tracking study was difficult in that there were no metrics for closed captioning. They were all devised to look at that technology or augmented from more common technologies. For example, when we used fixation ratios, we were more interested in the ratio of fixations within the caption area of interest in contrast to the total number of fixations, which would have been a more typical eye tracking metric. This type of analysis alludes to the bigger issue of the lack of standard metrics to accurately evaluate closed captioning viewing behavior. In other words, qualitative and quantitative approaches to understanding closed captioning requires that metrics be developed so as to understand captioning within its own unique context. To do so, we're found we have to think outside the box and make inquiry into captioning a transdisciplinary, not interdisciplinary, but transdisciplinary endeavor in which individuals from engineering, the captionists themselves, the caption consumers, the linguists, the user experience engineer can all come together and develop new and more robust approaches to studying captioning. So that would be the issue that I face when I look at closed captioning and want to analyze it further.
Thank you, Nicole. Sean, why don't we do a quick test to see if the captioner can hear you?
Okay. How do I sound now? I haven't done anything different.
I think it's on their end. Oh, it looks like they can hear you now. Wonderful. Do you want to continue with your response about challenges?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it was just this program that I found really valuable, actually indispensable, because because, you know, we usually start from the bottom up, and I wanted a way to kind of work from the top down as well with a larger set of data rather than just individual examples. I'm really motivated by individual examples, and so are people on Twitter. I mentioned squelching yesterday, and a number of people tweeted about squelching in Stranger Things, that Netflix series that people are excited about. So the individual examples really can be really fun, and you can sometimes learn a lot from an individual example. But you know, I think that we need a way to scale up. And for me, this was a start, especially if you're interested in non-speech captions. But I sort of lost my place. So you had one table of non-speech. This is all the non-speech in Avatar. And then a second table, the program extracts, whereas this is a really long caption file in Avatar, there's a second table of speaker IDs. I'm not sure, I didn't work too much with speaker IDs in the book, but as he was putting the program together, I thought it might be interesting just to extract all the speaker IDs from a single movie. And then of course you can search the collection as well. You know, we could look for all of the references to indistinct chatter. And we can pinpoint their location and the caption number. We can click and see what that caption looks like in the context of the surrounding captions as well. And then at one point or another, I copied some collections of captions into Excel. This could be a way to code a collection of non-speech captions. You may be able to see this, okay, just coding the different types. I don't know that we've ever identified what the different types of non-speech information there are on DVDs. So I identified paralanguage and sound effects and so on. This is Inception, and then I became really interested in how sound effects tend to cluster around music. And you know that music in Inception, the kick music that kicks people out of the dream space, the sound effects seem to work hand in hand with the music as things start to rumble and break down in that dream space before the music kicks them out. So I think we can learn things about the meaning of the show by bringing the captions in and coding them in this way. But the program was a way for me to work from the top down instead of just the bottom up and sort of meet in the middle. That's it.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
We do have a question from an audience member, and this is a broad question to all panelists because I'm not sure who can answer it. So the question is, has there been any research that guides us in the best placement of captions for deaf users with low vision or tunnel vision? And I have not come across that in my own research, so let me check in with each person. And we're getting a little bit of lag on the person who's helping us with signs, so I'm wondering if we need to switch.
Yeah, this is Sarah. Let's switch. Do you mind, I don't know if the audience could see the question. Did you see the question?
Sean, have you come across in your research anything that guides in the best placement of captions for deaf users with low or tunnel vision?
No, I haven't. I think the basic guideline is that positioning or placement is always preferred over using like preceding hyphens to distinguish two speakers who are on the screen at the same time. Placement is always superior according to the stuff that I've read. But I haven't read anything more specific than that.
Okay. And Nicole, do you have any response to this based on the research that you've done?
Sean? I would agree with Sean on that one. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, I can hear you. So I would say one of the things we've been working on here at Oregon State is trying to understand more comprehensively the research on closed captions and specifically the populations that have been included in that research and the topics of that research. So this is something that I would be happy to share the list of what we've compiled for the research that's been conducted specifically with the deaf community to see if there might be something in there that can help you. I can tell you that it's probably less than a dozen articles from what we found that's in peer-reviewed journals. So I would be happy to connect with you maybe outside of this to help show you what those articles are if you want to look at the research that we found. The final question as we're leading into the end of our panel, I'd like to ask each of our panelists what you think the future research questions are for the field of captioning studies, and what do you think requires the most exploration? So I think I'll start with Nicole. Nicole, can you share with us what you think are the future research questions for the field?
Sure. I would say it has to do with FCC law and the types of best practices and guidelines that they put into place. I think that they need to be tested. They need to be revisited. They are new, but they need to be revisited and make sure that there are not ways to improve upon them. FCC law, as it dictates closed captioning, is a living body. And so research in support of different captioning techniques, et cetera, need to be there. Also, more qualitative research needs to be done with closed captioning, rhetorical investigations such as Sean Zdenek, so that we can start identifying variables such as race and other important issues, and see how it is that they play in and affect closed captioning, not from the technical level, but from the cultural aspect of it. And I would say that user experience needs to, and I know Sean had an article actually that is out in user experience within the last year or so, and there needs to be more attention to what exactly the consumer of captioning is going through. There needs to be more investigations onto the cognitive load that a viewer can carry and how that then impacts their viewing experience. And I think I'm going to stop there. But as you can tell, I think that it's a field that definitely has a lot of potential and possibilities and many ways of approaching it, which makes it exciting.
Thank you, Nicole. Let's go to Janine. Janine, can you share what you think are some of the future research questions in the field of closed captioning? Thank you, Janine. We do have an audience member comment. One problem I've noticed is that captions can be placed at a time that sometimes distract us from looking at important visual information, such as fleeting facial expressions or quick motions. Has there been research done on how to address that? And I just wanted to mention, based on this comment, that what Nicole had mentioned about cognitive load is probably the research that's most closely tied to the idea of people being distracted by closed captions. And in a recent study we did here at Oregon State, we did identify blocking information as a common hindrance that students identified as being problematic with closed captions. The important thing is that's fixable, and we can do something about that, particularly for media that is pre-recorded. But that area of cognitive load is also something that I'd be happy to provide more citations on if that's of interest to audience members. I want to shift to Sean to tell us about some of the future research questions that you're thinking about for the field of closed captions.
Okay, sure. And I've been taking notes curiously here. And Nicole mentioned my research, and on my list I have research that Nicole has done, and I think may continue to do, eye tracking studies, usability studies, how people are interacting and engaging with captions. I think we need more work like that. Reading speed studies, I think might fit into cognitive load, which has been mentioned.
I apologize for interrupting. This is Leslie in Estrada. The captioner has lost your audio again. Yes, so no audio is coming from you.
Okay.
I think we're all hearing you fine, but she's hearing everyone else on.
Okay. What should I do? You can summarize, Katie.
Let's do that, Sean. Why don't you speak, and I will summarize what you're saying. So if you can speak in smaller chunks for me to do that, that would be great.
Okay. User experience studies, like eye tracking and reading speed studies.
Some of the future research questions could be on user experience studies and eye tracking.
Reading speed as well, I think, just how users engage with captions.
Also reading speed and how users engage with captions.
I've really become interested also in animated, or what Janine calls embodied captions. I've created a couple examples too, and I'm really interested to hear more about her dissertation and her research. I think that could be a possible future area as well.
I'm interested, Sean is interested also in animated and embodied captions, and is looking forward to reading about Janine's research in this area.
Sure, and I think just one more, I have a longer list, but one more would be big data studies.
Sean also mentions big data studies as a possible area for future research for closed captions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sean. One additional thing I would add for education studies on closed captions is we're starting to look at closed captions compared with interactive transcripts, and particularly asking questions about cognitive load, because the interactive transcripts are off screen from where other information is being shared. And so trying to help to better understand if interactive transcripts are helping students learn in the same way that closed captions might.
Yes, Katie, I think that research is so important, and it's on my list. The work that you're doing at Oregon State, I could just sort of star that. Student surveys or institutional assessments, or working with third-party vendors like 3Play Media, captioning workflows, all of that stuff.
Sean has mentioned that he is following the work that we're doing at Oregon State and is interested in the partnerships with vendors, and also thinking about captioning workflows. And I can't remember the other piece of you said, Sean, I apologize. We did have one more question from the audience, so I think maybe we can end on that. That question is, what tools or software are available for varying caption placement? And I'm wondering if we should direct that question, at least initially, to Janine.
One moment, sorry. Can you still hear me or see me?
I can hear you.
I just got booted out.
Oh.
The interpreter just got somehow logged out. I'm not sure how you still hear me. One moment.
We're waiting for the interpreter to log back in. We can still see you, and I can still hear you.
Okay. Okay, so, I'm sorry, the interpreter, the screen just shut. So do you mind putting on Janine again? Yeah, sorry about that.
Thank you. Sean, did you want to add anything to that question about tools or software?
No, I think that's good. I've used After Effects and stuff more sort of, but no, I think that's good.
Okay. Sean is saying he doesn't have anything else to add. He's used some After Effects, but feels that Janine covered that question. Nicole, did you have anything to add to that question about tools or software?
I actually agree. I think that Janine did a good job of reviewing what is out there and available.
Okay, thank you. I would like to thank all of our panelists for joining us today and sharing their experiences with captioning research and some of the challenges and things that they're thinking about for the future. Thank you also to our audience members for joining us. I see in one of our chat notes that the portions of the audio where Sean was not able to be heard will be captioned in post-production. So if you want to revisit the video recording, we will have all of those components added back in post-production. So thank you to all of our panelists, and I hope everyone enjoyed the conference. I think this is our closing session, and we very much appreciate your engagement. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Gregory. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Katie. And thank you to the interpreters and the cart writers. Again, everything that you've seen in the conference should be available, hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks, and captioned. And if you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to respond to the post-conference evaluation. If you're interested in presenting as well, please notate that. And if you're working in caption research, please be sure to be in touch with us. Let us know what you're doing. Thank you for attending. Thank you for your participation. You've all made this way more intense and exciting and interesting than I thought was possible. So thank you very much.